the truth about being a freelance videographer and photographer. Today I wanted to share with you what it's like, right? The positives and the negatives towards going down this career path. And I know there's a lot of information that sort of like glamorizes this industry for creatives, right? While it is a great industry to work in, if you're willing to put in the work, it can be very, very cruel to people who don't have the grit and don't have the persistence to be able to stay in the game for a long time. I'm obviously going to explain in further detail why I think that most people aren't actually cut out for this career, but to actually start off the video, I thought we'd start off on more of a positive note, right? We're going to run through all of the best parts of being a freelance creative, so photographer and videographer, and all the worst parts too. So before we get into the video, I just want to give you a brief summary of who I am and what I do. So I've been a freelance videographer and photographer for the past 7 or 8 years now. This has been my full-time gig, so this is how I've made my money, and I feel like I've gotten a great range of experience at this point around how to operate as a freelance photographer and videographer, how to create a brand and a personal brand and work towards achieving results for my clients, as well as fulfilling briefs for creative campaigns. So just to give you a quick summary of sort of some of the projects I've done some big projects and commercials with professional athletes. I've done a lot of work in the advertising space, so I've done social media content for businesses and brands, as well as luxury real estate. So I've consistently filmed some of the nicest luxury property videos in all of Melbourne, Australia, as well as also recently building a personal brand in the social media space in the behind the scenes videography and photography sector, doing brand deals with some massive brands including DJI. So let's start off on a positive note, shall we? Because it's a bit of a double-edged sword, I'll be honest with you. So the best thing as a creative is that you get to set your own schedule. You know, you choose the hours you work, you choose how you work, and you choose essentially what you end up working on every single day. And that sounds amazing on the surface, right? But you know, when you love your business, you're just going to end up working every single day, all day anyway. So, you know, when you're starting out building the business, you'll probably find that you're working pretty much like 12 to 14 hours every single day in order to try and get it off the ground. I love being able to set my own hours. I love being able to choose when I work and how I work and how I develop the products that I'm selling to my clients. I like being able to spend late nights editing, you know, shoot during the day or in the evening. I like to be able to just spend some days just locked in the cave, you know, spending all day just in the zone editing videos. That's the sort of flexibility that you're not going to get when you work a 9-to-5 job. You're not going to be able to select the hours that you work. You're going to be tied to a schedule and you're going to be working the exact same hours pretty much every single day. You get to choose the direction that you take your career. You know, you can choose the type and the niche of photography and videography that you want to pursue and that you want to work on. You can build a portfolio essentially in any type of photography. You know, you can choose wedding photography, corporate photography, commercials, you can choose cars, you can target brands, you can do small business work. There's so many different areas of this industry that you can choose to service and make a good living. Now in the beginning, of course, you know, you're going to be experimenting with a bunch of new styles and genres and, you know, just seeing what works for you and what you enjoy doing. But when you actually figure out something that works in your marketplace and you figure out how to create a product that people value and that helps your clients achieve their goals, then obviously that's something that you're going to want to double down on and go all in on to make sure that you can figure out how to scale that business, how you can set up systems in order to acquire clients and get referrals from clients as well. After you've practiced in that niche for a long time, you can also, of course, get way more efficient at your job, and it means that you're able to produce that product faster and cheaper. This is obviously a very desirable career, right? You get to create videos and photography for a living. That's your job. Your job is to be a creative person and to use your skills and your creative direction to help other people achieve their goals. So that can be helping a business acquire new clients through creating content for their social media channels. That can be helping a brand sell their products by creating content to help to advertise their products and sell the feeling of what it's like to use that product. It can be creating lifestyle content to sell a video for a luxury property. A lot of people dream of doing this for a living, you know, being able to create content full time. And you know, if you ask a lot of young people what they want to do now, often the responses you'll get are, I want to be a social media creator, or I want to be a YouTuber, or a filmmaker, or a photographer. But that doesn't mean that it comes easy, you know. In fact, it took so much work for me to actually be able to make this a sustainable career. Another great thing is that there are so many opportunities in this industry to forge your own path. And the reason is because everybody needs content now. Every single business that isn't on social media creating content isn't advertising their business and bringing in new customers. In the fast moving social media landscape where there's endless potential out there to get work into your business. This is the best thing about freelance videography and photography, is that you can directly get paid for your time and your skills, right? You don't have to worry about, monetization on social media channels, or you don't have to worry about brand sponsorships if in the early days, obviously when you're starting out, you're not going to have an audience. Freelance is how I started my career, and we still do a lot of freelance videography work to this day because it's just so lucrative. Videography and photography, it's a very fulfilling job. You'll get to experience a lot of highs and a lot of wins throughout your career as long as you stay in it for a long enough period of time. But obviously that comes with a lot of work, right? You have to create a good product and you have to be a very creative person in order to be able to sustain yourself long term in this industry. And often when you're shooting projects on site, you're going to be working with the same clients on a regular basis, obviously dependent on your business model. But when you're working with local businesses, helping them develop content for their social media channels, then you're going to be able to develop some great relationships with those people, which I think is really cool as well. You'll find that you will get a lot of repeat customers, as long as of course you do a good job, right? Another great thing that I personally love about this industry is that as I've actually scaled up my business and got more regular clients into my sales funnel, I've been able to provide opportunities to other people as well, to other videographers to shoot projects for me, to models to working on brand campaigns for me. I've hired videographers to shoot luxury property campaigns. I've hired them to help me film brand deals for DJI. Recently, we actually hired one of our lead videographers to fly out from Melbourne to Sydney to go and to film a bunch of professional athletes. And that was a really cool opportunity that, because I'm in this industry and I've been in it for a long time and developed great relationships with my clients, I'm able to now bring other people into the business, other videographers and creatives, and teach them how to film and edit videos, and then give them work and pay them for their time as well, which is something that you're never going to be able to experience if you're working a steady job or a 9-to-5. You'll find that when you're winning, you'll feel like an urge to try and help other people to win as well, and you want to give them opportunities to try and grow in their career too. As a freelancer, you can get paid thousands of dollars a day for your work. It's a concept as a worker that is confusing to people. Like, they're not sure. They'll say to me, oh, you're getting paid like $2,000 for like half a day's work on this project. Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, what, you're getting paid $6,000 for this brand deal? Like, what the fuck? Like, it can't compute with people who are working a salary. It's pretty much unheard of in any salary job or salary position. Your earnings are uncapped. Another thing I love about this industry is that you can choose your business model. If you want to shoot every single day and then price your services cheaper in order to be able to do that, then you can. But if you want to sell a premium service and shoot less as a result of that, but make more money per shoot, then you can choose to go that route as well. And of course, this also depends on the niche you choose too, right? For example, if you choose luxury real estate and you want to film luxury real estate videos, you can charge, $2,000 for a single video, but you might not be shooting every single day. Whereas if you were to price your services at like $400, $500, you might be getting 1 or 2 or 3 videos every single day. So it really depends on how often you want to work, what creative products you can see yourself selling long term as well. That's also another big thing to think about too. You can also choose if you want to operate the business just as a solo individual creative, or if you want to build a team and you want people to work for you. So you want your own videographer, you want your own dedicated editor to focus on the editing. These are all decisions that you can make as a creative business owner. All right, this is probably the part of the video that you've been waiting for, wanting to hear about, right? This is some of the worst parts about being in this business and being a photographer and videographer. Unfortunately, one of the biggest things that creatives don't realize until they actually get into this industry is that most of their time isn't spent actually doing photography and videography. Most of it is spent on, client acquisition. It's spent on advertising the business, marketing yourself and your business on social media, sending emails, pitching projects, negotiating pricing, and then eventually making sales. It's only after you've made the sales that you can actually get down to the creative parts of the business, right? most of this job, while you are technically, right, a photographer and videographer, most of the job is doing the admin and the management side of the business rather than actually creating every single day. Scheduling bookings, managing relationships, keeping client communication consistent. These are things that take up way more of my time than shooting and editing. The interesting thing is when you actually start hiring other videographers and people and models and stuff onto projects, you end up spending most of your time, pretty much all of your time, doing like the boring stuff, the admin, the stuff that we don't want to do as creative people. And for most creative people, right, they join this industry because they want to take photos and make films and just create every single day. But that's also not the reality of the job, especially in the beginning. Like there's going to be this period where you're going through a bit of an uphill climb in order to try and build your portfolio and try and acquire clients. Once you get some repeat customers, obviously things become a little bit easier, right? You can sort of set aside a lot of that original client acquisition work that you did and then start to continue to focus on maintaining those relationships and continuing to create great creative products for your clients. A lot of your time is spent towards figuring out how to package your creative services in a way that's appealing to customers, that helps them to achieve their goals, and it makes them want to make a purchase from you. At the end of the day, as a freelance photographer and videographer, you're shooting and editing a product that is designed to help the client's business, whether that be to make sales for them, whether that be to elevate their status or solve a problem for them. That video or that photo that you're taking for them has to fulfill some sort of need or some sort of brief. As a freelance business owner selling a creative service, you're essentially working directly for the clients. While it is through your own business and your own company, technically speaking, right, you do have a new boss every single time you work with a client. It's not just like you're directly working for yourself. In a way, your clients sort of become your boss. So you end up spending most of your time fulfilling other people's visions, helping to fulfill a brief or helping to meet a need for a particular business to sell a product. And in many ways, this removes a lot of the creative freedom that you have and that you would have started with when you actually did this as a hobby. This can be a positive or a negative, obviously, depending on, how you look at it, right? Because some people, they find fulfilling a brief is just simpler and easier and it makes this job less chaotic. The negative part towards fulfilling a brief is that you don't have much creative flexibility or creative control in your business. A lot of your ideas, if it doesn't align with the brief or the goals of the business, then they're going to get shut down to a certain extent. So if your goal is to use your creativity to express how you feel, then working on a corporate brief or, a commercial campaign, that's not going to allow you to do that. It's something that's great when you're making videos as a hobby, to work on passion projects, but it's not something that's going to work when you're working directly with clients. The high-paying corporate shoots or the brand deal shoots that I do, often they're just directly written by the clients, or ideas that I suggest to a brand will get shut down because they don't fit, their campaign. Your purpose, essentially, as a creative working in the advertising and the freelance world, is to use your creative skills to drive profit and sales to businesses and companies. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's all about money, right? As a freelancer, what they're earning as a result of the content that you're creating has to heavily outweigh the amount that they're paying you. That's how the world works. That's how this whole business operates. Another tough thing that photographers and videographers go through is they experience extreme highs and low. It's an extremely volatile business, right? You're going to have months where you earn nothing, like literally nothing. Clients won't be booking you. And then some months you'll earn $20,000 in a month. And you'll be like, what the fuck? This is crazy. And you feel on top of the world. But, if you crave stability and you want a consistent paycheck every single month, this industry probably isn't for you because it's extremely volatile. You're going to go through these massive waves of like really good months, really good years, and then really bad years as well where you're going through it. Nothing in this journey is guaranteed. This isn't a stable industry. This is one that you're going to experience some massive waves emotionally and massive waves financially. If you are the person that craves stability and you've been in this industry, then you're probably constantly going to be on edge, unsure of where your next paycheck has come from. Now, obviously over time, you're going to get used to this, right? If you're ambitious and you're going after really big goals in this industry, there's a very high chance that you'll be spending years working towards something and you won't see any results of the work that you've put into this business, because it takes a long time. You know, you'll be working consistently every single day, doing long days for a long time before you start to see some good results within your business. You know, the truth is you don't really have any idea if any of this is going to work, right? You have to be a little bit fucking crazy to do this, right? Like I am. And you're constantly going to be second guessing every single decision that you make. You know, you'll make a decision and then either it blows up in your face or it works out really well, because everything falls onto your shoulders, right? All the mistakes that you make, all the responsibilities, all the successes you have, they're a direct reflection of the decisions that you've made in your business. And of course, you learn through the mistakes that you make, right? Obviously, you make a mistake and then you pivot or you fix it and don't do that same mistake again. But if you're a person that's scared of failing and you thrive off short-term validation from people, you're looking for the immediate success, then this industry is not for you, because this is a long-term game that you got to play. If you don't plan on being in this game for life and you're just like daydreaming about all these curated like travel influencer fucking Instagram highlight reels, this industry, it's not for you. You're pretty much just destined to fail. This one is more related to the financial side of things, but people are constantly going to try and negotiate your prices down no matter what you're charging. If you're a local freelancer or a business, chances are the first response is going to be, oh, this is too expensive for us. You know, it's pretty rare that you'll get clients that will just straight away just pay your go-to rate. Every now and then I get a nice client like that that's just like, oh, that's your rate? Cool. And they just pay it straight away, but it's rare, right? Normally, if you're pitching to a business or a corporation, they're going to try and pull a fast one on you. They're going to try and say, we don't have the budget, or it's too expensive for us, or can you do it for cheaper? This is very common in the social media creator space, where big brands will often approach creatives and tell them, oh, we want to collaborate with you, but we don't have the budget. You know, you're willing to do it for exposure or for free, or for camera brands in particular. This is a big one. You know, they'll approach creatives saying, we'll give you this camera. Do you mind just like creating content for us in exchange for it? And the truth is, these big brands, they have the budgets there, but at their first approach, often they're going to try and convince you that, oh, all these other creators that we're paying happen to just do it for a free camera. Yeah, it seems legit, right? A lot of clients will try and take advantage of you, and that's just the truth. You know, you got to be able to set your rates and stick to them. If you're in a difficult position where you really need the work and you don't have as much leverage, then sometimes you'll be in a position where you're sort of just forced to take work by lowering your rates. If you're operating in the luxury space, so whether that's filming luxury properties, luxury vehicles, working for glamorous fashion brands, or even for rich people, often you'll get a lot of empty promises from people. If you're servicing rich people, often they don't play by the same rules as everyone else. What they'll do is they'll say whatever they think will convince you to do what they want you to do in that very moment, whether it's true or not. You know, essentially they're playing a short-term game to get what they want out of you, and then that's it. You know, often you're notoriously dealing with a lot of short-term thinkers, you know, people that want access to your content in the short term and essentially are not looking at it like you are from a long-term relationship perspective. It's particularly common when you're dealing with people within like corporations or people in, you know, a commission-based role, so in the real estate industry in particular, or in a corporate company where they're incentivized by their higher-ups to try and knock some money off the price from a creative. This has happened to me in the past where I've obviously raised my rates after a few years, and then I'll get emails like try and renegotiate, or they'll say that they don't have the budget and they can't afford it for their campaign. But as soon as I stick to my guns and reinforce that, hey, these are my prices now, if you want to work with me, book me. If you don't, then don't book me. One of two things will happen. Either they'll continue to book you, or you could potentially lose the client to somebody else. But as videographer, if you're working with big brands or corporations, they have the budgets there, but they're going to still try and negotiate and get a better deal out of you anyway. You know, a lot of the companies in the space that are a lot bigger than me, like agency level video production companies, are charging, $20,000 for the same package that I'm charging, $4,000 for. They're not going to negotiate that bigger agency because they're babysitting them the whole time, but they see, an individual videographer or freelancer and they're like, oh, I can bargain with this guy. So that's just something to keep in mind. Often by corporations and big brands, you're treated more as a line item than a person, which sucks as a creative person, and it can be quite draining too. Invoices. You will 100% get fucked around with payments. Even if you have written contracts, companies, big brands, corporations, they're notorious for delaying payments and paying invoices late. Now, I've worked with corporate clients, real estate clients, big brands, small brands. Often I find that smaller businesses are way better with this. Small businesses tend to pay invoices really quickly. If you're working with big bloated corporations with like 5 fucking levels of middle management where everything has to go through these stupid approval processes, and in order to get anything done, everybody needs to tick it off and review it, then your payments are often going to be paid late. Your invoices are treated, sort of not as a priority. They want to try and preserve their own cash flow, and they essentially, a lot of times, they just pay you when they fucking want to pay you. I've had businesses where I've had to send them like 25 different reminders over like 3 months in order to get paid properly, even when the invoice is due within 30 days or 60 days. Now, obviously, as a creative, this is your life, right? Your livelihood, but it doesn't operate the same way with corporations and big business. As a business owner, you have to initiate everything. So you need to build everything from scratch. So that means you have to build your portfolio. You have to build the systems in order to make your business operate the most efficient way possible. You have to do all of the marketing, all of the sales. You have to manage all the relationships with your clients. You have to manage expectations, and you have to be really good with your finances as well. Like literally everything becomes your responsibility when you become a creative business owner. Now, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you view it, everything is within your control. The first few years of actually building a creative business, they're honestly more about survival, right? You're just trying to survive for the first couple of years and stay in the game long enough so that when you start to build your portfolio and build your skills, then you can start to cash in later down the line, right? It's going to be an uphill climb for the first few years. That's just the reality of it, You're not going to start off and immediately people are just going to throw money at you unless you have some crazy network and level of connections. It takes a long time to actually see results in this industry, and it takes a lot of persistence and a lot of grit and a lot of facing rejection in order to see results in your company. Now, if all of that sounds good to you and you think that you can push through all of those challenges as a creative and business owner, then you're in the right place. But if that doesn't sound like it's worth it to you, then I'd strongly advise you to choose a different route to go down. A route where you don't have to go through all of the crazy highs and the lows of being a creative business owner. It takes a very rare type of person to want to push through that. I happen to be that person, right? But truthfully, most people aren't like me. A lot of people that I meet that I talk to now that I've made a lot of progress in my business look at me and they're like, oh wow, this is amazing. I want to do this too. Most people crave structure, they crave comfort, and they crave stability. And this career doesn't have any of that. So it's worth keeping that in mind. Now, for some reason, I happen to be the person that I just can't imagine myself doing anything else other than photography and making videos, Like this is all that I want to do, which means that I'm just going to push through things when they get really difficult. When things get hard and my back is against the wall, I'm going to fight my way to get out of it. But most people aren't like that. A lot of people in the same situation would just give up and do something else. But if you're like me and you can't imagine yourself doing anything else other than photography and making videos, then guess what? You're in the right place. Welcome. You're just as insane as I am. Working through all of this made me realize something about myself. I think about everything maybe more than I should. All of these lessons didn't just change the way I work, but it forced me to confront how deeply I process everything.